UVA's president resigns. DEI is under fire, and a heated debate breaks out on national TV. But beyond the headlines, there's a deeper clash over values, education, and what equity actually means. Let's break it down.
Other frontier in something that is happening all over the country. But the point that the UVA president made in that letter, that so many people are just collateral damage in a crusade against three letters, DEI.
This is the framing we hear a lot, that any critique of DEI is a crusade, and that institutions are just collateral damage. But let's not forget, many schools voted to reduce or remove DEI themselves. It's not all top down. Some educators and students believe these programs have overstepped.
That's the reality that we're living in.
Well, look, there's more to the story. One is that the university voted to get rid of the DEI programming, and apparently this guy just renamed it and gave it other names and other acronyms and other euphemisms, and so he tried to get it to identify as something else, but it was still DEI, so he kind of went around, I think, what the school was wanting to do. And I don't really shed any tears for this. I think the country doesn't want this. I think it's bad for higher education. I think it's bad for corporations, and I think it's time for us to move past trying to divide ourselves up the way they have done on these university campuses and embrace.
He brings up a good point. If DEI was removed, why just rename it? That's a key part of the backlash. It's not just about removing programs. It's about accountability and transparency. The public doesn't want rebranded ideology. They want real reform.
Everybody and equal opportunity for everybody.
It's hard to embrace everyone when you want to erase people's histories, when you want to make it easier, when you want to make it easier for folks to be discriminated against, when you want to make it harder for people to be admitted to schools. The reason why the school would not have voted to remove DEI if Donald Trump didn't have the backlash on DEI.
Here we see the emotional framing. If you oppose DEI, you're erasing people's history. But pushing for equal opportunity isn't the same as denying history. The real concern is when DEI is used to prioritize group identity over merit, unity, and individual achievement.
So it's not like the school wanted to. There's some cause and effect here. I think that the president is taking one for the team, and I think that he is actually being the leader by saying, I don't want people to lose their jobs, unlike what this administration did by cutting workforce in the federal government. I think that people don't really understand what DEI is, and I think that is the problem. But DEI has made this country great, and it will continue to make it great. And there will be backlash from this. The pendulum continues to swing, right. And I think this is an overreach, and going into higher education institutions is not going to stop there. It's going to go into school districts, and we just saw a Supreme Court case today on LGBTQ.
They say the president wasn't taking one for the team. Or, excuse me, the president was taking one for the team. But what team is that? Administrators preserving bureaucracy? Or the students and faculty trying to restore academic focus? And let's not forget, this whole situation is rooted in federal pressure over how taxpayer dollars are used.
There is a future world in which a Democratic president uses the power of the presidency to threaten private institutions, public institutions who don't do what they want them to do.
Wait, what do you mean
that is going to happen?
That was the past.
Okay,
Joe Biden's administration already did that.
Future past. You didn't like it when it happened.
But,
that.
you know,
it was
but
wrong,
you like
and it was
now.
bad for business and bad for education.
You know, Abby, I was thinking about this. UVA was founded by Thomas Jefferson, right? The man who helped to lead our country away from tyranny, a man who believed in states' rights, who did not want a king to tell us how to live. And now here we have this bizarre irony of the American president acting like a king, telling a state-level institution who should and should not be leading it and what they should be teaching in it. This is sort of the modern-day form of tyranny against our educational institutions. And I think that we need to really protect our educational institutions as well. I'm very concerned as a Jewish American.
Interesting how quickly the conversation shifts to a hypothetical Democratic president using the same kind of executive leverage. That already happened under Biden. So the issue isn't who's in power, it's whether universities should be political battlegrounds in the first place.
I'm also very concerned about arguments like DEI or anti-Semitism being used not to oppose those issues that they're concerned about, but to use it to blow up higher education and schools that really educate all of our country and make our society more whole. And this is just one more example. Thomas Jefferson, again, I'll say it, must really be rolling around in his grave.
You can't be for equality and all of us coming together when E is about T and DEI. I'm laughing here because
it's two different
you guys.
words.
No, it's
Equality
equity.
and
I know
equity
it's
are
equity
two
and
different
equality,
things.
but they mean similar things in terms of choosing from diverse pools, including people, and how to get.
I disagree.
What in your mind? What's the difference between equality and equity, and which one is better for you?
Great question. Equality to me is equal opportunity. Equity is trying to guarantee outcomes, and those are two
But
different.
that's a nuanced conversation that you guys don't
but
want to
I also
have.
think that
Hold on.
that is your personal definition of it. That is not a
Now we get the Thomas Jefferson irony. Founded on liberty, now under federal pressure. It's a fair historical contrast, but let's be real. Today's debates aren't about kings. They're about whether taxpayer-funded schools should be held accountable to broader public standards.
Ask me my opinion.
Right, I know, but I'm saying my point is that to people who support DEI, equity means exactly what you just described as equality. And in fact, they don't use the word equality because not everybody is exactly the same. So how are you going to make two individuals who are actually different equal? You just want them to have equitable opportunities. So in a way, it feels like you have the definitions kind of reversed.
Well, I think also the DEI regimes have been used to discriminate against other kinds of people. I mean, Asian students, for instance, were discriminated against broadly in this country.
I think you're conflating affirmative action with DEI.
But we also know that once the Supreme Court ruled that Asian student admissions have actually gone down in Ivy League schools. But I will say, to bring up Thomas Jefferson, there's also an interesting part to his story as well. Thomas Jefferson also had children with a slave, Sally Hemings. And so in a world where we want to erase DEI and we...
Here's a valid question. How do we teach history accurately while avoiding ideological overreach? Nobody wants to erase Sally Hemings or slavery, but DEI critics argue that many programs cross the line from education into activism, and that's where the public concern lies.
We want to erase people's history. What is the story that UVA can actually be taught? Can Sally Hemings be taught? Is that book removed? The family of Sally Hemings, we didn't even know about Sally Hemings until I was alive. And on the Oprah show it came out on, right? So the Sally Hemings family and the Jefferson family had two different lifestyles, right? And we would say that in a world with equity, that should there be some reciprocity for the mistress of Thomas Jefferson, who most likely probably was not a slave by choice? I mean, these are the nuanced conversations that when we just want to do a blanket wipe out, those things get erased.
There's a difference. Again, DEI is a nuanced conversation you guys don't want to have because it's not about, look at the NFL, for example, with the Rooney Rule. It's not about forcing people to interview those candidates. It's that those candidates didn't have an opportunity to be seen to get that interview. That's what it's about. But you guys love to shorten things. MAGA, DEI, you put it on hats and t-shirts, everyone feeds into it and they think it's this great boogeyman. You guys done a phenomenal job with it, I gotta be honest with you.
There's a lot of talk about nuance here. But the reality is, if DEI were just about opportunity, there'd be less backlash. The criticism comes when it moves from opening doors to manipulating outcomes based on identity, not merit.
with you, but that's not what it's about. We can have the nuanced conversation about what diversity and equity and inclusion is supposed to accomplish, whether it be in the workforce, hiring practices,
All right, we
but
gotta
we're
leave
not
it here.
having that because we can't have
We
it.
do have to leave it here.
People just are tired of being divided by race, and they just want people
We're
to
not
be
trying to
able to
divide
rise
our
by
race.
their
We're trying
own
to give
talent and their own
people
hard work.
inclusion. The I
Is it possible that most
including.
Americans would rather be judged on their hard work, talent, and their own character and their own achievements as
actually true,
opposed
we
to
would.
in-
We would.
identity politics?
We would.
Yeah, that's what people have
We
rejected.
would. How about you let us?
Right.
I
That's the
think you
thing.
guys should
We would.
continue to run the Democratic Party and the left purely on
I don't-
identity
I'm not
politics. It is
part of the
working
Democratic. I'm
swimmingly
not
for
part
you.
of the
It
There's
is
a lot of
working
identity
swimmingly.
politics
Politics on
happening
your
on
side.
the
Yeah,
right. We got to acknowledge.
The segment ends with a mic drop. Most people want to be judged by their hard work, not identity labels. That's the core issue. When hiring, admissions, or rewards are based on group identity instead of personal achievement, it creates division, not unity. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. If you think merit should matter more than labels, drop a like. Let me know in the comments, where do you stand on DEI in education? And don't forget to subscribe for more honest breakdowns of the big issues. And with that, we'll see you next time.